you're an egg fan, right? Like a big.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I'm an egg fan. Sure.
Yeah. But
Let's start with that.
Hey everyone, Morgan here, co-founder of Primal Kitchen, and welcome to the Primal Kitchen podcast. This week, I'm getting personal with Mark on his daily diet, breakfast, and thoughts on training. A quick reminder, any and all opinions and views shared by hosts and guests on this podcast are the speaker's own, do not represent the view of Primal Kitchen or its affiliates or parent company. Hey.
How you doing?
Good. I'm just laughing because I got made fun of in the YouTube videos on the background here, and now I have my matching orchid to the matching orchid in your background.
In my background, yeah.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on my background.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell.
Yeah.
We need to get Carrie in there, do some work.
Sure.
Okay, so this is great. I want to touch on like a few things. This is going to be like rapid fire Q&A today for everyone listening. We're going to do a quick, just give me a rundown these days. I'm sure it's changed a little bit over the years, but I feel like probably not that much. Like, give me the 5 minutes on what is Mark eating a day.
It has changed a little bit over the last bunch of years. Most notably, I kind of base my weekly diet around a daily big ass salad. If you remember, that was sort of one of the words we coined in the early days of Mark's Daily Apple, the big ass salad. And I was a fan of putting as many different vegetables into a bowl and putting some salad dressing in there. And that's in fact one of the reasons that we decided to put out Primal Kitchen was I couldn't find salad dressings that would kind of match my specifications. Having said that, my routine is pretty much the same it's always been, which is based on 2 meals a day, not 3. I wake up, have a cup of coffee, like a strong cup of coffee with some heavy cream in it. I do use a little monk fruit sweetener. And then my first meal is typically 12:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30, sometimes 2 o'clock. Today I had one stone crab leg and a burger without the bun. That was lunch, and it was plenty, and it was fine. So I will have what I think most would consider, a modest lunch, always based on protein. I don't really worry too much. I really never worry about saturated fat in my diet. I do worry about industrial seed oils. So if I'm having a salad, which I might have on occasion for lunch, I have to make sure it's either a Primal Kitchen product with avocado oil or something based on extra virgin olive oil, and not these, store-bought dressings, and certainly not the kind of concoctions they make in restaurants with soybean oil and canola oil and corn oil and so on and so forth. So the lunch is a modest lunch. I almost never have a snack in the afternoon. If I do, it's a handful of nuts. And again, typically now I'm paying attention to the linoleic acid content of my diet. I want to reduce that. So I won't have sort of regular mixed nuts. I would have like macadamia nuts or something like that. And then dinner, focus on protein, usually a big piece of steak, a good sized piece of fish, some vegetables, either steamed or grilled or something like that, slathered in butter. I enjoy red wine, so I'll have a glass or two of red wine with dinner. I try not to eat dessert. Sometimes I'll have a bite. I spent 2 months in Europe this summer, on and off, and you can't go through Europe and not eat a little bit of, try the desserts and try some of the goodies that they have there. But I'm pretty strict about not incorporating dessert or any sort of sweet after dinner food in my diet. So it's everything I eat is tasty, and I really that's the focus of what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make every bite of food I put in my mouth taste great. I'm not trying to deny myself anything. What I am trying to do is optimize my metabolic flexibility by not overeating just because food is available. So to go back through this, it's really, other than the coffee, it's no breakfast. It's a modest lunch, maybe a snack in the middle of the afternoon, but usually not. And then around 7:30 or 8 o'clock, because that's when I like to eat, a regular dinner focused on protein. Again, could be steak, could be fish, could be lamb, could be pork. I'm not a big fan of poultry anymore. and some vegetables.
Why? What's with the poultry?
It's just because I'm paying attention to my palate and what really tastes good to me, and the quality of the protein. I've decided that I don't think that chicken is really that nutritious. I think some of the fats in chicken are not as healthy or beneficial. There's probably more linoleic acid, again, more of the omega-6 fats in chicken. I'm not a fan of how most chickens are raised. That's a topic for another day. But I just have sort of gotten away from chicken in that regard. Now, I will have turkey over Thanksgiving and probably over Christmas.
Yeah, awesome. What about beer? Are you still doing non-alcoholic beer?
I once in a while I do non-alcoholic beer. I keep some always in the refrigerator, and it's a great thirst quencher for me if I come back from, say, a hot bike ride. Today I did hour and 15 minutes on the fat bike on the beach.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that hot today, so I didn't really need to quench my thirst. But some days when I get back from something like that, the sort of the taste of beer is the one thing that will really satisfy it'll slake my thirst.
Non-alcoholic beer that you were always looking for at like Soho House and they never had it. What was it?
Well, St. Pauli, makes a great one.
Was there like a bitten?
Yeah, there was one. Yeah, there have been a couple over the years that I was into, but I think St. Pauli Girl was probably the number one there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I like it. And like, how often are you eating out and how often are you at home these days?
We eat out way too much.
Yeah.
And I don't, I'm not complaining because we choose to do it. It's just that we've moved into a new area of our lives in South Florida here, where we have a ton of friends who are great people, great to hang out with, very social. And so there's always, something going on, an invitation to go to dinner. And, I think with what happened with COVID last year and everybody being closed up, more people are inclined to go out and take advantage of the newfound freedom, as it were. So, whereas in the past, I used to love to go out and used to couldn't wait it was a big event to go out for dinner. Now it's a big event to stay home for dinner and just, cook up a giant steak and catch up on some binge watching or something.
Yeah. So how many times a week are you eating steak, would you say?
Oh, I mean, it was steak. I mean, I eat beef 5 times a week. I eat lamb, in addition to that, I might eat some lamb. I might have some pork. I might have fish. I mean, I have a sort of a little bit of a routine here. Every Monday for lunch, I go to a restaurant down the street called Santorini. It's a great place here in South Beach. And there's one dish I get every Sunday or every Monday. It's salmon. So they just make a great salmon.
Who are you going there with? Is this like a social thing or is this just?
No, I go alone. So that's I walk over there. It's literally a block from my house.
Yeah.
I walk over there. I do some work while I'm there. It's just part of a little routine I incorporated a couple of years ago.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. You're loving this like walking lifestyle of Miami, huh?
Oh yeah. No, it's completely different from what I was used to for the prior 2 decades in Malibu, where Malibu is a automobile community. And even though it's in the mountains and, the mountains come down to the ocean and it's idyllic and beautiful and serene. And, there's lots of great hiking and there's lots of great biking and stand-up paddling. You have to get in a car to do any of this stuff. You have to, go get a cup of coffee, go buy a paper, go to the gym. You got to drive wherever you're going. We lived in Miami Beach for a year and didn't have a car. We just walked everywhere or Ubered if we had to go someplace. We do have a car now, but I had a car for 2.5 years here in Miami Beach, and it has like 3,500 miles on it.
Yeah, so, sounds like us. I mean, COVID happened, and we leased this car. I'm going to buy it out because it has like no miles on.
No, it's worth so much now too.
It's crazy, and the used car value is like through the roof. So you can't even get another car. So why not just hang on to it? But too funny. Okay. Now you're an egg fan, right? Like a big.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I'm an egg fan. Sure.
yeah, but
Let's
you don't
start with
ever eat
that.
them. If you're never eating breakfast, are you ever?
No, but that's really interesting because people assume, eggs are breakfast food, but a lot of times I will break my fast. I will start my day with a first meal at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon with an egg dish because I like them so much. So I like an omelet. I love an omelet for lunch. I'm not sure I would elect to have an egg dish necessarily for dinner, but for lunch, it's a great food for me.
I love it. It's great. So do you ever eat breakfast? Is there ever an instance where you?
Yes, I do. And so once in a while, if I've broken the routine, I'll have breakfast, but the routine that I'll break is typically when I'm traveling. So if I'm, skipping time zones and kind of going through a process of reorienting my body to a new time zone. Sometimes like we went to France about a month ago for a week, and I had breakfast 3 days in a row there at 9 o'clock in the morning, just because I woke up, my wife was going to sleep in. I felt like, breakfast was included in the room.
Yeah.
So there's that. And it was like, I'm not trying to hold myself to this ultra strict schedule. The purpose of this is to, again, optimize metabolic flexibility, your ability to burn fat and to exist, deriving energy from whatever food substrate or whatever stored energy substrate is available on your body at the time. So part of metabolic flexibility is being able to adjust back and forth, and to some days go all day without eating at all, like truly fasting, and other days to maybe have 3 meals.
Yeah.
But I find that when I have breakfast on those occasions when I'm traveling, I'm not interested in lunch then, because it's just, I am of this opinion and this mindset. And then it's really ingrained in me now that 3 meals is just too much food, and I got shit to do. I don't have that time to be stopping and sitting down and consuming stuff 3 times a day, let alone the 5 or 6 that some people seem to think is appropriate with snacking and everything.
What's up with this? I feel like sometimes I eat breakfast and then I'm more hungry the entire day. Like I'm not hungry in the morning. If I don't eat breakfast, I have lunch, I'm good. But I'm not eating like waffles or pancakes for breakfast. I mean, I'm eating, you've seen me. I mean, I'll go out. I mean, I don't do eggs because I have an allergy, but I'll order sliced tomatoes with avocado and a side of sausage or something, right? It's not like I'm spiking my blood sugar, or maybe I am just by.
No, you are. I mean, what's happening is rolling this back a thought, as I say, all the good things happen in the body when we're not eating. So the longer you can go without eating and not make it uncomfortable on a regular basis, probably the better off you are.
Yeah.
So most people who are into this, either the keto or the ancestral, the primal paleo, most people who are doing this way of eating now have what they call a compressed eating window or time restricted feeding. I mean, it has all these different monikers to it, right? But the bottom line is you try to compress the amount of time that you're eating into an 8-hour period. In my case, it might be 1 or 1:30 p.m. to 7 or 7:30 p.m. And that's it. And then I don't eat the next 18 hours. And that's when all the good stuff is happening in the body. Well, when you do eat, it sort of starts the digestive processes. And so having breakfast, and this is an issue for a lot of people, having breakfast seems to satisfy people. They wake up hungry, so they have to have breakfast. That's why many people have labeled it the most important meal of the day. But then the very act of having breakfast and starting the digestive process also starts a number of hormonal events that take place in the body that lead you to be hungry a few hours later. And then it repeats as a roller coaster throughout the day. So people who really are at the mercy of this roller coaster effect would have breakfast and then a donut or a bagel at work, and then lunch, and then a mid-afternoon snack, and then dinner, and then something watching, TV at night. And it gets out of hand, it gets out of control, and it really it puts people on this kind of treadmill toward overweight, obesity, type 2 diabetes, or at least metabolic syndrome, increased risk for cancer and heart disease, inflammation throughout, systemic inflammation, because the body never has a chance to rest and repair and recover. It's always dealing with an onslaught of new calories that it has to figure out what to do with. Do I burn them now? Do I store them? Do I increase the body's thermoregulation to burn off the calories because I don't want to store them? The body has all these decisions it has to make whenever you eat. When you don't eat, the body has very easy decisions. It's like, okay, there's no food. This is cool. We're just going to burn off stored body fat. That's the reason we store body fat in the first place. We're going to create ketones and fuel the brain. The brain prefers ketones over glucose. We're going to start doing repairs to cells that are damaged. We might even consume some cells that are not worth repairing. We're going to repair DNA in some of the cells. And so all of these wonderful things take place when you're not eating, and they cannot, almost by the very nature of the process, cannot take place as a repair mechanism during those times that you are eating, or during those times that you are continuously, not maybe you just ate, but you're still digesting the food, and all these other processes are all these other sort of switches are switched on and the repair mechanisms are switched off.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of the fasting thing. There's just like even so much more science coming out. Like it seems like every day on the benefits of it. So if you're going to break a fast, is there a right way to do it, a wrong way to do it? And are you doing 24-hour fasts? Like, or are you just more like everyday kind of time restricted eating?
I mean, I'll do 24-hour fasts. If I'm traveling, again, if I find myself forced into a position where I can't eat, or it's inconvenient to eat for any length of time, I'll go, great. I don't have to worry about lack of calories. I'll revel in the lack of calories. Yeah. I'll be fine with that. So I can, I'll go 24 hours on occasion. So I'll go typically dinner to dinner without eating. And then if I'm involved in a project, sometimes even at home, I'll do that. I'll go dinner to dinner. And it's easy to do. And
dinner to dinner sounds manageable. When I think 24 hours, it just feels like so much, but I guess it's really not when you think dinner to dinner.
Well, you and I, we know a lot of people who have one meal a day. I mean, whether it's Todd White at Dry Farm Wines, I think Brian McAndrews probably does one meal a day these days, our cameraman. Yeah. There are a lot of people we know that not only just do it, they thrive on it. Right. So it's a real thing. And it comes down to comfort and convenience, but it's also a recognition that all the good stuff happens when you're not eating. So why not maximize the time you're not eating, with the caveat that you must not make yourself uncomfortable about it. You must not let hunger kind of cave you in. But if you've become metabolically flexible, and if you're occupied with the rest of your life enough that you're not just walking over to the refrigerator every hour or two for a snack, it's easy to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the way to break the fast? Does it matter?
I mean, it matters, sure. And it depends on the length of the fast. So my wife, Carrie, as you well know, has done 7-day water fasts.
Oh, she's doing that right around our wedding. Remember, she did that in San Diego right before our wedding.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she did it on her birthday here in Florida last year. She's getting ready to do another one, and she loves them. And she's, she feels cleansed by them and reset and refreshed and everything. But a 7-day fast. So when you come off of a restriction like that, you really have to ease back into life, right? You can't just go out and have a giant, lobster thermidor steak dinner, surf and turf kind of meal. You have to you eat broth for the first meal. And so you ease your way back into that, because you've really
taxed the system.
You've really taxed the system. On the other hand, if you're doing, time restricted feeding, and you're coming off of 18 hours or 20 hours of not eating, which some people, and I'm one, who would say that's not really even a fast. It's just time restricted eating. Yeah. Then you would do maybe, I think focus always on protein. That's always my big thing, is to focus on protein. Typically, even if you haven't eaten for a while, you've consume water. You're taking care of your hydration needs. You're paying attention to your thirst if you have thirst. So that's not an issue. It's not like you're starting from real true zero there. So I think as much as I've always been a fan of protein, I'm more a fan of protein now as like the essential macronutrient to which you have to pay attention. If you can get the protein right, everything else sort of falls into place very easily.
Interesting. And getting it right, meaning what? How do we know if we get it right?
Well, I mean, just getting it right typically means getting enough of it. It's not now there's a lot of work that looks into the question is, can you have too much protein?
Yeah.
And if you are eating healthily, and if you are not, gluttonous about your meals, then you probably won't want to overconsume protein. It's not like you're going to have 100 grams of protein at dinner and then have 50 or 60 grams of protein, or maybe more, at the next meal, at lunch the next day. And if you do, that's only 160 grams. So you're not going to overdo the protein. What you could possibly do is underdo the protein. And so I would say that that's when I say pay attention to it, it's probably easier to underdo the protein than to overdo it, especially if you're if you've sort of relegated your eating schedule to 2 meals a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. What about working out when I'm fasting?
I mean, I only work out fasted. I don't know why anybody would work out on a full stomach.
I'm the same. I ate by accident. I mean, I was out with the boys and Adam like one morning, and they eat breakfast 3 and 1.5. They're hungry when they wake up, right? Growing little guys. And I went and played tennis like I do 3 times a week. I couldn't even play tennis. I mean, literally, I don't know how growing up, I never wanted to eat breakfast. I remember my mom being like, you have to eat something, like sending me out the door with like a s'mores Pop-Tart. Like, I shit you not, right? Like, I was definitely way better off not eating than having a bagel with cream cheese in the morning. And, when I was 16 or whatever, but I agree. I don't know how people work out with a full stomach.
Well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you have anywhere near a full stomach, if you have food in your stomach, you're diverting blood flow to the mesentery, the part of the blood supply that supplies the digestive tract. You're diverting it away from muscles, so your efficiency as an athlete, whatever form of activity you're doing, is going to be compromised because your digestion is now fighting for blood flow with the muscles that are actually supposed to be doing work. So that's point number one. Point number two is there's nothing that you could eat right now that's going to provide some magic amount of energy on the tennis court or in the weight room or on a run or a bike ride. It's almost impossible to conceive that you're going to contribute to the gas tank with a final meal before your activity. What's happening is when you start your activity, you have glycogen in your muscles, and the muscles are going to burn glycogen if you're doing a tennis game or some high intensity work, some what we call glycolytic activity. There's fats that are stored in the muscle. There's fats that are stored in the fat cells that are being released into the bloodstream that are available for fuel. So that's what your body's going to use mostly for fuel. And that's what you want your body to use for fuel. So you want to go into a workout feeling comfortable because A, you don't have anything in your stomach that's competing for blood flow, and B, knowing full well that all of the energy substrates that you're going to use in that workout already exist, whether or not you had a meal. Now, there's a little bit of an asterisk there. If you've been a sugar burner your whole life, if you're someone who's never really trained your body to efficiently burn fat, and let's just say you're an endurance athlete and you wake up for a race in the morning, not having had breakfast and certainly not having eaten since dinner the night before, there's an argument that 40 or 50 grams of carbohydrate, because that's all you're good at burning, would help you through that race because it would provide a little bit more fuel for the muscles in the liver, which have spent the night depleting somewhat those fuel supplies. But again, it's an insignificant amount that contributes to what the overall effort is going to be when you get out there. You want to burn the glycogen in your muscles. You want to burn the fat in your muscles, the fat that's in your bloodstream by way of the fat cells. Then the question is, well, doesn't that mean I should eat right after my workout? Like that was another big
recovery
mantra during my days of training as an athlete in the 70s and 80s. In fact, I bought into it fully. I developed one of my first products I developed called Carbo Concentrate. And it was a drink that you consumed after a workout. Yeah. You consumed it after a workout to take advantage of what they used to call the 40-minute window of opportunity, where your body was fully prepped to refill the glycogen supplies. Now, the concept was, first of all, that you had you'd done some activity that had fully depleted your glycogen. So typically that was going to be a long 10 or 15 mile run in my day. And then it was also based on the notion that you were going to get up and do it again tomorrow. Right. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So taking advantage of this little window of opportunity where the body was going to remanufacture glycogen at a slightly higher rate than it would have outside the 40-minute window of opportunity. But that became that became the standard advice and conventional wisdom of the endurance community for 20 years to consume. It wound up being ultimately an 80-20 concoction of 80% carbohydrate and 20% protein. Now, that whole concept has kind of fallen by the wayside for a couple of reasons. One is that you don't really, unless you're a top endurance athlete and competing on a regular basis and doing hundreds of miles of cycling and running and whatever, you don't need to refill the glycogen stores that quickly. They're going to refill anyway. So there's no reason to start the process 40 minutes after you just came straggling through the door, panting and sweating, to get ready to do it again the next day, because the body will remanufacture glycogen. The other is that you want to, and this is probably the most important, when you work out fasted, particularly if you're doing weights in the weight room, or if you're doing interval training, high intensity training, there's a real response the body has to that work in real time. And it's a pulse of growth hormone and testosterone. And that's what's one of the mechanisms that allows the body to build back stronger from the effort you just did, provided you give it enough time to recover. So that building back stronger is enhanced by this pulse of growth hormone and testosterone. The problem could be that if you were, and that happens automatically after the workout. One of the issues with that is that insulin will blunt the growth hormone response and the testosterone response. So insulin will blunt those. So high insulin is not a good thing. Well, if you consume a meal right after a workout and insulin goes up, then you've blunted one of the main reasons that you wanted to go bust your ass in the first place.
Interesting.
So it's a very vicious cycle within the endurance community. It certainly used to be, that not only would you have to think about in terms of replenishing refilling the carbo load every meal, basically, but refilling the glycogen stores because you were going to go do it again tomorrow. But in so doing, you were negating some of the effects of the workout that you were trying to get. So you're better off not eating and probably not even working out hard the next day, and let the recovery and the rebuilding and the building back even stronger take place. Because at the end of the day, hopefully the only reason you're training is to get stronger. I hope you're not training to just wear yourself and tear yourself down. A lot of people are.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah. And they take great pride in that. But that's really not theoretically, that's not why you're training. You're training to become better at whatever it is that you want to do. And the danger there is that you go from improving in these different areas. You improve your aerobic capacity, your strength, your maximal power output. You improve all these areas because you've selectively chosen specific workouts that focus on each one of those little building blocks that will ultimately create a better athlete. And instead of going down that strategic route, you just kind of practice hurting every day. And so now you hurt every day, you tear down, you feel like shit, you're tired. And by the way, you don't get any faster, or you don't get any stronger, or you don't get any better at your sport. And yet I see so many people who are in that area that we call the black hole of training.
Yeah. You were there. Were you not?
I was there for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what is it about the psyche that like puts people there, you think?
It's a sickness. And I'm not saying that lightly, because there was a point for a long time in my life where, if I didn't do 100 miles a week, I was not a good person in my own mind. I wasn't fulfilling my objective. I wasn't keeping up with my agreements with myself. Mm-hmm. I was guilty for having missed a day. So it was really the discipline of getting up every day and doing it again and doing it again. And over time, what happens, the brain acclimates to that. It habituates to that. It literally, people say it's addictive. Well, it's not really an addiction. It's a habituation, but it's like an addiction because you're producing these endorphins, these opiate-like substances that your body produces in response to the pain of working out, to hopefully get you through, so you don't feel depressed about your life. That's the evolutionary response in the creation of these endorphins. And so from one day to the next, day over day over day, week over week, year over year, these endorphins continue to be present, and you continue to kind of go down this habituation role where it's not only difficult to give it up. Like I quit racing because I was injured, and it was clear I was never going to be at an elite level again because of the injuries that I had. And yet I continued to train 20 hours a week.
For how long?
Oh, for another 5 or 8 years after I stopped.
Like, how'd you stop?
Well, then I never really stopped. I just tapered off. It literally went from training 25 or 30 hours a week to retiring and only training 15 to 20 hours a week for a few years and coaching people. And because I was coaching people, I could argue that I needed to be, riding my bike hard for 3 hours with my proteges, with the guys that I was coaching, or I needed to run with them, or I needed to do whatever with them, even though I wasn't racing. And by the way, I was racing. By then I was in my late 30s. So I just get into age group categories of races and, win my age group, but that didn't mean anything to me. And then after that, it wasn't until I had something to replace that. I guess sickness is too much of a word, but that obsession. And it became, around that time I started another business. I had been a business person for years, maybe started another business that was more interesting to me and took more of my time and it gave me the permission to not train so hard.
Yeah.
But it's difficult. And the flip side of that is people like today, I'm not injured. I'm pretty fit for my age. Some would say one of the fittest people you've seen for my age. And I keep thinking, well, maybe I should go back and start training for, triathlon or marathon.
You haven't run a mile though in how long? Like
25 years. So every time I think that and I put on a pair of shoes and I head out the door to go run, I literally will get like 200 yards down the road and I will go, the fuck am I thinking? And I will walk home. And literally I will remember almost immediately how much I had to overcome, how much training for these sorts of events is just about managing discomfort. And I don't want to be uncomfortable that way anymore.
Yeah. I have a friend, Julie. She was like a major marathon runner. And like, I want to say, I remember her telling me a story about like, my parents and I like cried when she ended up going to Brown. She's super smart, right? And she didn't get into like Princeton or something. And she was telling me this story about how it was like so emotional for her and her family. And I was thinking, man, that is why I was never a runner. I went to University of Colorado and I enjoy surfing. Like, it's just such a different, like, it's a mindset thing. It's definitely a mindset thing. Yeah. But now like, what's the obsession? Like, it seems like the obsession turned into a different obsession. So what is it now?
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, now it's, I have a new footwear company that I'm starting up. So I'm channeling my energy and my excitement and my obsession into that. And this has risen in the last few months. As you're aware, we sold the company to Kraft Heinz the first week of 2019.
We're coming up on
and
2 years.
I was retired, so to speak. And it does not suit me to be retired. And I'm not, I have a friend just down the road from me, and he's my age. He trains 5 hours a day. I'm like, dude, whoa, like, what do you, and he's not even a competitive athlete. He just likes training, and he just likes,
like, what kind of training? Like, he's running or he's biking?
He plays 2 hours of tennis in the morning. He lifts in the gym for an hour. He might run or do something else. And then he plays tennis again in the afternoon.
Wow.
And he rides his bike at sundown, and he's just always got to be doing something. And I'm, I guess I applaud that. And maybe he didn't have that when he was younger. And so now it's finally his thing. Good. But he's asked me many times, like, do you want to go on a bike ride with me? And I'm like, no, dude, I already, like, I did sprints this morning. I did my workout. Yeah. Or I went to the gym and I lifted weights. My workout is done. I don't need to go again.
Yeah. Are you working out every day? Like, you're doing something every day, would you say?
Pretty much. A couple of days ago, I just, because of the timing of my workouts, I don't want to, like, I don't lift more than twice a week, and I don't ride more than twice a week. And these are, they're not hard and fast rules for me, but they work, because when I work out hard enough that I should not be able to do it again the next day or even 2 days later. So, like, I rode my bike today. I wouldn't want to ride a bike for another 3 or 4 days, just because I worked hard enough that it was fun. And I did it, with purpose, but I was done in an hour and 15 minutes, and I got my workout in, and I want to build from that workout. I don't want to do 4 or 5 days of cycling in a row and have each day then become a successive drain on my system. Yeah. So I mix it up. So I'll have 2 days of riding, 2 days of paddling, 2 days of lifting. And the other day, I realized I'd done enough of these things the days before that I couldn't allow myself the luxury of doing any one of those again. So I just went down to the gym and I stretched, and I talked to people. I stretched for an hour. I had a great time, and I did the sort of stretching that I should be doing more of, but I don't. So even if people would say, well, that's a workout. Well, not the kind that I'm used to, but it was serving a purpose physically for my body overall. So I'll count it as a workout.
Yeah. When I go for a long walk on the beach, does it count? How do you feel about walking?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think, walking. So Carrie, my wife, walks, she does 7 or 8 miles 3 days a week when we're in Florida. And she has a walking buddy, and they are very good about heading out the door at 9 o'clock and getting their walk in. And then she also, as you know, Carrie also lifts weights. She has a professional circus trainer who works on her stretching and acrobatics.
Really? A circus?
Yes.
Is this in Florida?
Yeah.
This is
a former Russian circus performer. He's my age, and he's just a trainer now. He's got like 6 clients in my building who love working out with him. And it's unbelievable. He'll put them on the yoga blocks, face down in a frog position, and stand on their back.
Stop it.
I mean, it's brutal. It's crazy.
Is Carrie still doing a lot of yoga or not?
No,
really?
she's not doing a lot of yoga, but this takes the place of yoga for her.
Cool.
Yeah.
But she walks. That's a big thing. Yeah.
So yeah, to your point, walking is great. Walking is still the best thing you can do. And this new footwear company that I'm starting is going to be is basically suggesting that if you walk with the right footwear and you walk appropriately, it's one of the best things you can do for not just your foot health, but your overall health.
Yeah. Are you allowed to tell us like a little bit more about your footwear company, or is it still under wraps?
No, sworn to secrecy. Yeah.
Fine. Well, hopefully we'll be able to talk about that.
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully. I was just, it's a long, we're dealing with manufacturers in China now and design and the whole supply chain thing. And it's exciting, but it's not easy.
Yeah, that's for sure. Does it feel good? Like, how's that been feeling getting back into the entrepreneurial game again?
Oh, it's great. I mean,
good.
I'll tell you this, it feels good to not have to put your house up for a personal guarantee on financing. Feels good to have my son as a co-founder. That's great. Kyle's 27. He's all in. He's having a great time doing this.
I love it.
Yeah.
I was just talking to someone yesterday about our story, and I'm talking always these entrepreneurs wanting to know whatever. And I was like, yeah. And then, Mark had a personal guarantee on our line of credit, and everyone's just like, oh my God, that sounds, yeah. So
it was up to $10 million guarantee one time. Yeah.
I remember. Believe me, I remember. Yeah. It was, yeah. We're like, Mark, don't just play it cool. Just please don't do anything in your personal life. We got to keep it under wraps so we can keep the business running. Yep. But thankfully it all worked out. So where's your level of stress then at these days, would you say?
It's absolute minimal. It's the least stressed I've ever been. And even again, people say, why would you start up a new company? Well, it's not stressful. I mean, I have money now, so I don't have to stress about, am I risking my family's a roof over their head and food in their bellies to start a new business? No, it's, this is.
Yeah. You're not dealing with investors. You're not.
Right.
I had that. It was probably more the personal risk, but interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to the training thing. So walking's good. I really want to know more about this Russian circus guy. This sounds so fascinating. This is
Carrie said her goal, and she might've told you this at one point, is to be able to do splits.
Yeah.
Right. And she's never been, Carrie's, she's 5'10", she's got really long legs. She's not really set up to be able to do gymnastic moves like that. So it was a challenge for her.
Cool.
And so she has all of these exercises and stretches and things that she does with Eugene, her trainer, that is contemplated to, make her more flexible, far more flexible than say regular yoga would do.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Cause Carrie she was into yoga for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? You doing any yoga?
No, not doing any yoga. I should, I know, but it's, well, first of all, I can't, so many things to do in so little time, as they say, right, throughout the day. I'm retired, and I find at the end of the day, where'd the day go? I'm supposed to be puttering around looking at, building, furniture as a hobby or something like that because I'm retired, but no, I'm fully busy, all day long doing stuff. So the yoga thing doesn't fit in my schedule in that regard.
Yeah.
And I'm part of this process of looking into the footwear, the side of this industry that I'm going to enter has to do with the health of the feet and the strength of the feet, and the fact that most of who we are and our power and our balance emanate from the feet. So a focus on the core, which has been the big focus for the last 10 or 15 years, everything is about the core, may be a little bit misdirected in this new way of thinking. So I'm much more looking at things from the ground up.
Yeah. I love that. I was just reading this article that was talking about hands, like how if you put like, we always do this with our little guys, right? You put like an 18-month-old on a bar and they grip on and they can hang on for a long time. And that's like a really important, shoulders up position that we should be able to maintain as we age. And it's like an interesting test if you can hang from something for 90 seconds of like your kind of just health in general and where you're at from a strength perspective, because it's like something that's inherent when we're young and we just live these lives like, us right now in front of the computer with our shoulders hunched over and we lose that ability. So I wonder if there's like some tie there with the hands and the feet. And
I absolutely think there is, because we're bipedal and we're one of the few animals that is bipedal. We're basically like a Segway. I mean, how is it that we don't fall over every second of every day? Other animals have 4 legs. They sort of balance out that way. We're trying to do whatever we do on 2 legs, which is not a very great design for balance. So it really comes down to the feet, the grip strength of the feet, in addition to the balance centers in the brain. But the grip strength of the feet is probably as important as grip strength in the hands. And one of the markers, as you just alluded to, one of the markers of longevity is grip strength. So when they look at old people, they actually put a meter in their hand, like a squeeze meter, and they measure grip strength, and they can predict how strong the body is throughout just by measuring grip strength. It's a great that, and say how fast you can walk/run a mile would be major metrics of longevity.
Interesting. I hadn't heard this. I need to get a pull-up bar now, I think.
Yeah.
Hang from. I don't know about. What about jumping? I also was reading, some doctor was saying that like we should be jumping 40 times a day for longevity or something. Just like Rick had mentioned this to me at one point, maybe after he read your book. So Rick, kind of like our third silent co-founder of Primal Kitchen, and you guys kind of knew each other through similar circles back in the day riding bikes. I remember Rick got to a very unhealthy place before he met you and started working at Primal, and then really he's totally one of those like obsessive workout people who just tortured himself for no other purpose than torturing himself, like really early crazy bike rides. But then he toned it back and focused on recovering. He had like a pretty transformational change right when he came over. But
well, just to add to that, he was one of those guys who would ride 50 or 60 miles several times a week and then, overeat the carbohydrates to refill the glycogen because he knew he was going to ride hard again.
Totally.
And the effect was he never trained his body to burn fat efficiently. He just trained it to burn carbohydrates better. And as a result of his eating carbohydrates, he gained some weight over the years, and he'd put on, 20 or 30 extra pounds and even though he was like he was riding as hard and as much as he'd ever ridden, he was not able to burn those calories off because he was eating so much in the way of carbohydrates.
Yeah. And he was one who was like not eating and then he'd forget. And then, which maybe was just to his benefit, but then he would break the fast with like a Starbucks muffin that someone picked up on their way into the office. And yeah. But I don't remember where I was going with this, but maybe just overtraining. I don't know. This is interesting on switching it up. Were you ever, I'm totally going on a tangent here, but when you were training and when you were coaching, I mean, I know carb loading wasn't kind of, I would say mainstream still is the football team still probably does pasta dinner on Friday night, right? Like I know that conversation started to change in like elite athletes at the time, kind of maybe, I don't know, later when you were coaching, I'm not really sure, but were you ever training like fat adapted or on fat, or was it still like the days of goo the whole time you were training?
The whole time I was training, it was all carbs.
Yeah.
It was goo and Gatorade. I told you about Carbo Concentrate, which is one of the products I developed. And we created a product that I was at a different company, and I called it Power Gel.
Okay.
And this was around the time Power Bar came out. So the owners of Power Bar hadn't put out a gel yet, so the name was available, and I wanted to trademark the name Power Gel. And But I was working for a company that had other sort of core competencies and were better in the vitamin area than they were in the ingestible supplement area or ingestible nutritional area. So we kind of let that whole business fall aside. And that's when GU came along. We were before GU, and then GU came out and did okay. And then you saw all sorts of concoctions that were carbohydrate-based replenishment drinks. And that continues through today.
Okay, so wasn't Johnny G one of the first guys who started doing this whole training with fat thing? That you
Johnny G was really a true pioneer. And I remember,
tell everyone who Johnny G is so they just have the background.
So Johnny G is a South African guy who moved to Los Angeles in the 80s to become a personal trainer. He had a training gym in West LA with another South African, Greg Isaacs. Johnny was always inventing stuff and coming up with new ways to work out. And he started by having these classes on rainy days in a garage where he'd invite people to ride on a stationary bike, but it was a trainer. So you'd put your road bike, the bike that you would have ridden outside you'd take the front wheel off and mount it to something, and the back wheel would spin against the resistance thing. And he'd put music on and coach these rides, and he called it spinning. And over the years, he developed a system where he would coach people on these bikes, and he had these classes, and he would call them spinning classes. So Johnny G is the inventor of spinning.
Got it.
Now, at the time he was doing this, he was really into cycling, clearly. He was training for Race Across America, which was a multi-day event where you rode your bike from Santa Monica to New York. And people would do it in usually around 9 days. It's a brutal event. They used to have a motto, sleep cheap. And you would have, in those races, you'd have a vehicle, a support vehicle, who was responsible for keeping you alive. Because imagine on these remote roads at 2:00 in the morning, 3:00 in the morning, 4:00 in the morning, you're riding your bike on a street that has no lights on it, or a highway even. And you're trying to put in your 275 miles for that day.
Got it.
And you would be allowed, you could pull over whenever you wanted and sleep. But if you pulled over, then your competitor would go by you and get 40 or 50 miles on you while you're sleeping.
Did you ever do this?
No, God, no. Okay. But Brad, I don't know if you ever heard this story, but Brad crewed he was on one of the support crews for Johnny G.
Oh, he was for
1 year on his Race Across America. Yeah. Okay. Different story.
So Brad tell everyone who Brad is.
Yeah. So Brad's the co-author of my books, Brad Kearns. He's been on the pod. He was hosting the podcast on and off over the years.
He has a wonderful new keto nut butter called, what's it called? Brad's Magic Butter or something like that. And it's amazing. You guys can find it on.
No, it's really good. It's one of the best butters ever.
Yeah.
So Johnny G would train for this Race Across America. And, he would leave like at 6:00 at night on Friday night. And sometimes we'd be, as I remember this right, we'd be heading out on a Sunday ride, and Johnny would be coming back from the same ride he started Friday night. But his thing was he wanted to become better at burning fat. So what he would fill his bike water bottle full of avocado oil and I think lemon juice as an emulsifier. And that's 100% fat, right? Because he knew that he wasn't going to be able to replenish all of the glycogen, all of the carbohydrate. It was just going to be way too much. Difficult.
I'm all for avocado oil, clearly, but that sounds.
No, it was no. And this was back before avocado oil was, I think he was putting like avocado mush or mash or oil.
Oh, he was like, blending.
I don't even think you could get avocado oil, as he would say in his South African accent.
Yeah.
But I was fascinated by the science that he was. I knew the science existed, but he was actually exemplifying the science, where he was training his body to burn fat by basically withholding carbohydrate and only providing short chain and medium chain fatty acids as a substrate. This is also where MCT oil came into the picture, medium chain triglycerides, or MCT oil. So Johnny was, and this is in the late 80s, early 90s that this was all happening. So this is
were you done coaching at this point when you kind of like?
No, this was in the thick of my coaching. So I was coaching, as I recall, I was coaching the Pioneer Triathlon team, and we were traveling around the world. Brad was one of my athletes. That's where I met Brad Kearns. Yeah. He was the 3rd ranked triathlete in the world in those days. And he was on the team. And so he was one of those guys who wouldn't listen to me about dial your training back a little bit. You'll do more with less. But he was also on that fear of missing out in a different sense. He was he would, if he heard that his major competition, Mike Pigg, was doing 275 miles a week, Brad said, well, I have to do 280. And that's just on the bike, by the way.
I interviewed my sister-in-law's sister, Amy Van Dyken-Roon. She's like a 6-time Olympic medalist, right? And she said the same thing. She said when she was training, for like 5 years in the Olympic Training Center, whatever, 6 days a week. But the drive for her was like, if I wasn't in the pool, my competitor was. And like the mindset of like, if I miss 1 hour, they're 1 hour ahead of me. But Brad is like, he has enough energy to be able to sustain overtraining. I mean, of anyone I know, I say that facetiously, but he's just got like, he's like an eternal fountain of energy. Is he not?
He is. And that's a problem when you go to the well too many times, which he did.
Okay. So did you introduce all these people to fat? Did you guys start trying it, or was this?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't do the fat in those days. We were still basically training to, now I was into low level aerobic training. So I was trying to train the body to be more efficient burning fat by reducing the training load at a lower heart rate, more distance, but a lower heart rate in those days. So that was sort of starting to come to the forefront, but the idea was still sort of, you had to manage carbohydrate, and you had to, God forbid, you ran out of glycogen, and the literal wheels would fall off. So it wasn't until 10 or 15 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, we really started looking at fat as, an alternative source for endurance training that had real value and wasn't just some, wacky idea by one guy trying to train for Race Across America.
Yeah.
Now there are lots of athletes. Zach Bitter is famously, one of the best ultra runners ever to live. And he trains on, he trains keto, and he sets world records. And he does events sometimes without eating anything or very much at all, just drinking water, because he's so good at, he's so efficient with his metabolic flexibility.
Interesting. Well, I feel like I learned a lot today. This has been fascinating. And we didn't talk, I'm going to have to re-record the intro because we didn't talk about anything we said we were going to talk about, but it is even better. So I have 2 final questions for you. Okay. 1, for everybody listening, I want one piece of advice on diet. Like if people could just do one thing different every day, what would you give? What would you tell them?
There's a list of priorities, and probably the highest priority is, if you could do one thing differently, it would be to eliminate industrial seed oils. But just below that would be to eliminate, added sugars and sweets. So if you got rid of sugared beverages, pies, cakes, candies, desserts, and all that stuff, those 2 things, the elimination of industrial seed oils, and by this we mean canola, corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower, safflower oil. Those are just insidious oils that you find everywhere. Get rid of those and get rid of the sugars.
Yeah.
You're 80% on your way to reacquiring the metabolism you were born with, which will enable you to become metabolically flexible, which will enable you to go long periods of time without eating. And in so doing, to not have hunger be the main driver of every decision you make throughout the day.
Damn addictive sugar. Okay, last one for everybody. Like, some people are training, some people aren't. What's one fitness advice for everybody? What's one piece of fitness advice you do?
I think this just arose from the discussion we had half an hour ago. Remember why you're training, right? You're training to become fitter, to become better at what you want to do, not just to go hammer yourself on a daily basis. So don't lose sight of the fact that training, that fitness is a process that requires that you do a little bit more than the body is used to doing, but that you also allow time for recovery so that you repair and you actually do become better as a result of having gone to the gym and done what you did, or as a result of having gone for that 5-mile run.
I love it. All right, Mark, this was great. Look forward to next week. Thanks so much.
Okay. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye.